The next one I'll click on is the Manage screen, which you'll only see, of course, after you've created the show. And it'll take a few minutes to load. One thing that's different here from, for those of you who have been using the program before is that when this screen opens now, the list of entries for the show is going to be blank. There's a performance reason for doing that. It takes a long time to build lists, a lot longer than it does to take to actually retrieve the list of entries from the database. So we're simply going to put that off so that this screen loads faster, because if you've got over 1,000 entries in a show, it'll take a minute or so to get everything on the list. And if you're just coming in here to print out a report or to do some other task that's not related to looking at the list, it can get annoying waiting for the screen to load. So if you do want to look at the data, you simply need to go up here above the entry list grid and click on the button that says Show Entry Data. And there it is. Now, most of these buttons here on the left print out various types of reports that are used in the exhibition process. And let me just explain the workflow on which this is based. I understand that it won't be the same for all of you, but I think it's pretty close to the way most people do this. This is actually based on our personal experience in organizing and running exhibitions. So we didn't just pull it out of our hats. And then, of course, we've also taken feedback over the years from various users of the systems. And of course, none of these things are static. And if you see something that doesn't make sense for you, by all means, you should let us know, and we'll see what we can do to incorporating that into the way things run here. But basically, let's just take a very simple workflow, and that is where people are bringing work into your location and dropping it off for it to be juried. As the work comes in, you would make an entry, which we'll look at in just a few minutes. And at various points, you may want to print out a list of actually who's entered. Now, there are a couple of numbers over here on the entry list. This very first column here is an entry number, and that's simply a system number that's assigned sequentially as entries are put into the system. This will keep getting bigger and bigger without regard to which exhibition the item was actually entered into. It's just kind of an internal record number. But the sequence number, which we would generate after all the entries were in, is actually a number, the sequence number that is particular for each exhibition. So it's always going to start with 1. So at various points, you want to print out a list of what entries have been made in the show. And this is just kind of a chance to get you to keep track of what you've got sitting on your location at any given point. We also allow you to print out that same report. The first one is sorted by the entry number. This one that says alpha after it has the same list, but it's alphabetized by the entrance name. And it's done in a format, and all of these formats are customizable. So whatever you need for your particular organization, we regularly change these around so that you get the information that you want. And some of you who use the system may be looking at these reports thinking, well, that's not exactly the way that entry list looks like for our organization, but that's probably because we changed it for you. And you notice that here we've added 2 columns, verified and accepted. So in the scheme of things, this particular list, after everything has been entered, and all of the mistakes and duplicates and withdrawals have been cleaned up, you print this out, and you could actually use this to record the results of jurying. And then after jurying is complete, someone would come into this screen again and display the list of all the items that were entered into the show, and then indicate whether or not they were accepted simply by clicking off this box. And just clicking that immediately saves that status in the database. And then after all of your acceptances are done, you would print out this next report here, which is called an audit list. This keeps opening in a different window. I have to bring it over. And this has a couple of purposes. One is, hopefully as your jurying process proceeds, you're segregating the pieces. So usually the way I've seen it done and done it myself is you've got everything hanging in the gallery as you're jurying it. And as your pieces get rejected by the judges, you simply remove it from the room. So a lot of times the scenario is that what you've accepted is what's left hanging on the wall. And this should be a quick way to compare what's left hanging on the wall with what the system actually indicates has been accepted. If they don't match up, then you've got a problem somewhere. And then there's another column on this report also, which is called show order. Of course, whatever sequence or whatever sequence you receive things in doesn't necessarily mean that that's the order in which they're going to end up in the show. So this allows you to, after you've determined what order you're going to hang things in, you can record that order here on this form, and then you can come back in and put the order in which it's going to be hung on the wall. And coincidentally also the order then in which it would show up in the catalog in this box here. So and then typing that in will automatically save that to the database. So that's just a quick look at what's on the management screen. There's a couple of other things that we'll deal with again in a few moments. But what I really want to get to is a very basic question: is how do we get work into the show? Let's go ahead and create our new exhibition. Let's see, what's a good reception date? I'll do it on Sunday afternoon. Intake open date is the date that you will actually begin to accept work or entries for the show. If you are allowing people to enter from a web page, then whether or not there's a button on the page that people can click will be determined by what this date is here. And again, if they're looking at the web page to enter and it's past the intake close date, they will no longer see a button or a link that will allow them to get to the page to enter their work. I just selected the wrong one. Okay, we have our GL accounts. Make this a juried show. I'm only allowing one here. Now, notice I'm setting the non-member price differently, and the system will act the same way it does for determining eligibility for all member and non-member prices, as for instance when you're registering for a class. The system will recognize whether or not you are a current member. If you are, it will automatically choose for you the member price. And if you're not, then you're going to get charged $25. If the person is entering the show and joining or becoming a member in the same transaction, it will also see the member item in the cart during the checkout procedure, and it will give that person the member price. Drawing is not complete, catalog's not printed, show is not closed. We want the show to show up on lists, and we'll allow image uploads. So I'll go ahead and save this. And here it is on our list. So now we're ready to start. There's a couple of different ways of getting to the screen that we use for entering work into a show. And one of them is right here, and it says intake. I click on this, and it's going to take us to the intake screen. And don't be scared by the fact that it's blank. It's supposed to be that way here. You start, if you come to the screen this way, you start by looking for an artist. And you can do that by typing in the first few letters of the person's last name, and you'll get this pop-up suggestion box for matching names. Now, I don't see the name I want on here, and there's a reason, and I'm going to explore that before we go any further. But you can see how I did that, and I could select one of these off the list, and it would automatically load that person and allow us to go ahead and make our entry. But I actually want to make an entry for this guy. And there's a reason he's not showing up on the list. He's not identified as an artist/vendor in the system. In order to do that, I need to come into the edit screen and click this button here that says Artist Vendor. I'll put in a commission amount. And by the way, this commission amount is the amount that the artist keeps. And then we'll need a consignor code. If either of these things are missing, and the person shows up on the list of artists on the screen, which would happen if you checked this box but didn't complete this consignor code box here, it would warn you in big red letters that the consignor code was missing, and to go back here and fix that. So now when I save the record and return back out to the account page, you'll see that there's a quick reference without having to dig back into that edit page to see whether or not this particular person has been identified as an artist/vendor in the system, and whether or not the person has a consignor code. Even at this point, if the consignor code is missing, there'll be a little message here in red letters that says missing consignor code. So, something else that's happened. Now that we're on this screen, you see that this shows up here underneath the household member and relationships displays. And this will show all of the shows, all of the exhibitions that you have set up in the system that are actually open. We treat this a little bit differently than we do on the website, because at some point we may want to shut off entries on the website but still keep them open here so that your internal staff can continue to access the exhibition entries, perhaps for people who have mailed in entries, for example, and they get them after the intake date has come and gone, so they can't enter from the web. But until the show is actually marked closed, it will show up here for you to access it here. So again, I'm just going to go right back to the screen where we did before. Instead of saying intake, now the link says enter show, and if I click on that, it will take me back to the screen we were at before. Now it's all filled out. And This name is now on this list. Okay, and even here, just to make sure that you've got a consigner code, we display that here. So I'm just going to quickly make an entry. This medium field here has a list attached to it, but it's also free-form entry, so you can type anything you want to in here. And you see that people have typed in, over the period of time this data has been used, a number of different spellings of watercolor. That's one of the downsides to that particular data entry method. Now, we're looking at two dimensions here. I know that some of you have exhibitions of three-dimensional art, and there actually is a space in the database table for that third dimension. I just don't have it exposed on this particular page. That will be added shortly. But it is possible to expose that third dimensional field so that you can take entries of 3D art and get all of the dimensions for it. So that's all I need to do to make the entry, and I can just click on Add the Entry. And you see that it's added it up here to the box. Now this box up here, every time you come in to make an entry for this particular individual, you will see an historical list of all entries for all shows. And then if I need to edit this, I simply come up and click on this link here. It puts all the information back in these boxes. I can make whatever changes I want. Now the button says Save because it knows I'm editing a pre-existing item instead of creating a new one. And it clears it out. Now, if I had marked this exhibit to allow 3 entries, it would say 3 entries are allowed up here, and it would say 2 entries are remaining, and it would allow you to enter 2 more entries until until it would simply shut off. Because now you see this Add Entry button is grayed out. I've entered my 1 entry for this show. A couple of things to note about this entry here in the history grid is that there's a little red button over here, and this stands for withdrawing the entry. This does a couple of things, and it's important to know what. It's also important to know what not to do if you need to get rid of something. So let's just say this was a complete mistake. Maybe you entered it on the wrong person. Maybe it was already in there and you didn't realize it, but you need to get rid of it. So you would come in and you would click on this button that says Withdraw Entry. It's going to ask you for a confirmation. And if I had answered yes at that point, this would have disappeared. And in the system, we would have done something very simple. We would have taken the existing entry record, not deleting it, but simply changing it so that this entry, at least the parts of it that remain, would get assigned to a dummy account that's not even visible in the system. And we would change some of the information in the entry to indicate who it belonged to originally. In other words, in one of the notes fields for the entry, we would say this was originally for 31179, which is the user ID of this account. And it will show up. It will not show up in the list anymore. And when you're running a list of entries from the management screen that we looked at earlier, it's going to be on the list, but it's going to indicate that it was withdrawn, and I think actually it says entry error on it, or withdrawn on the list. So there's a couple of reasons for doing this. One of them is if you're taking entries over the web, and for some reason somebody messes something up and it gets withdrawn, rather than put you in the position of having to go back to your participant and say, I'm sorry, we accidentally deleted your entry. Can you do it again, or can you send us the image? It's still there. The image, if one was uploaded, is still there. And all we need to do, and this can be taken care of as a support incident, all you need to do is just let us know that so-and-so's entry got deleted, and can you please restore it? And we just have to go into the entry table and make a couple of very simple changes, and it's right back where it belongs. Now, why would you want to take images? Well, if you're taking entries over the web, even if you're not going to ultimately jury them from the images, obviously, if you're going to jury them from the images, then you absolutely need the image. Otherwise, the juror won't have anything to look at. But you may want to use the images for your catalog. So even if you're jurying from the actual object itself, you'll want to allow people to upload images, or you want your staff or your volunteers to be doing that here, so that you have the image stored with the entry. One Art Center sent us a form of a catalog that they use that actually has the images attached right in the report. And that's all possible, but we can't do it without an image. And uploading the image couldn't be simpler. You simply click on the Add an Image button. It takes you out to an Explorer window for your file system. You select the file you want and click on Upload, and it adds it and saves it. And there was one other button up here on the grid. And again, this is one of those forms that we can tailor to meet your specific needs. But this is kind of a one-page summary of all the details about this particular entry. And if we had uploaded an image, it would show up right here as well. This is also the same form that we make available to entrants who enter through the website. So after they've gone through the process, and they're going to see substantially the same screen that you're looking at here. It's a little bit simpler. It actually doesn't have any of this stuff at the top. But if they go to their account page on their web account page, they'll be able to see a listing of their exhibition entries, and they can print out that same report for their own records. And some people actually use this, we'll add a signature line to it, asking their web entrants to print it out, sign it, send it in just as a verification that they've looked at it and they acknowledged that the image is the correct one and that the information is all correct. Anything you can do to get your exhibition entrants to verify that what they've done is correct as far as they're concerned is all the better for you, as I'm sure many of you have found out. So there's a little box up here that says paid, and this hasn't been paid for yet. So we're going to take care of that next. And there's a button down here in the lower right that says checkout. And whatever items you've got in here that haven't been paid for yet, and again, if this was a multi-entry exhibition, if there were 2 more entries that I'd put in here, none of them had been paid, I would just simply click on checkout, and this will now process a payment for all of them. And it takes us back to the account screen with the cart tab selected and the exhibition entry fee in here, all ready to get paid. Now, I'm not a member, so it picked the non-member price. If I become a member in this transaction, as I said before, you notice that's changed now to $15. And then we just simply go ahead and check out as you normally would. Now, on the website, there are a couple of things that happen in terms of automatic notifications. And they happen in this sequence. when the checkout button is clicked on the website, when the entrants are actually doing their own entries on the web, then they get immediately an email sent out verifying that such and such entries have been entered into the system. And there's also invariably a message attached to that, and that form is editable. That says simply, this doesn't mean you paid for it yet, so unless you pay for it, you're out of luck. And then they actually have to go ahead and complete the checkout. Again, it's much the same procedure, and once they do, then they would also then get what they would usually get any time they did any transaction on the website, and that is a copy of the receipt. Now, if I need to come back in and look at this, you'll notice now, since I've gone ahead and checked out and paid my fee, that this entry is marked as paid. If somebody just goes ahead and makes an entry into the system and does not complete the checkout for the entry fee, then this will not get paid, and we have a report in the system that allows you to figure out who's paid you and who hasn't. All right. We can stay right on the screen and continue to do a bunch of different entries. To change the person I want to work with, I simply need to type in a new name here. Untitled is very popular. Name for P-names. This is what I'm doing it. Pretty simple process. Now, let's go back and see what's going on here. Now, in case you missed it before, to get to the exhibitions page, which is what we're looking at right here, off of the More menu, you have this menu selection, Exhibitions. Only people that have been given the exhibition privilege in the system will see this button. So if somebody's complaining they can't see it, it's because they have not been assigned that role. So a couple of things are going on here. Our system knows that this is now a current active show. And for each one that it finds in the system, it will display some summary information for you. It should also be picking up fees. Now I'll go to the Manage screen for this. And here's our data for the 2 entries that we've made so far. Now let's take a look and see what some of these other buttons do. Actually, I want to go back and change our exhibition to the one that has some more entries. And this, here we have the advantage that there's actually been some entries that have already been marked as accepted. So now, as we saw before, when we print out the acceptance audit list, we get a list of everything that's been checked off as accepted. This particular report here, print acceptance detail, simply has more information. And again, each particular report in here is customarily tailored to meet whatever your needs are. So whatever you're looking at here is just particular detail that this Art Center wanted to look at. And you'll notice that it's in a fairly simple format. This is really built for exporting. So exporting the acceptance detail, which is the other button over here, would do the same thing. It'll give you the same data. It's just going to put it into an Excel spreadsheet for you. And another report we've got here is a show catalog. I think this is very simple, but again, these are things that in the normal course of business we modify for you. And if you're wondering how you put in the not for sale item, I don't know if there were any on this list. Let me bring it back. Yes, here's one here. Not for sale simply gets entered with a price of 0, and the system assumes that that means it's not for sale. Exporting the entry list allows you to essentially print out this entry list but send it to a spreadsheet. And then I don't think there's a sales report loaded. Here I might be wrong. There haven't been any sales either, but this would actually report on all sales out of this show. And we'll look in a minute at how we actually do that. Now, oh, and aside from the show catalog, you'll want to have some kind of label to stick on the wall next to items as they're hung. This is just one form. And again, just so that you don't get concerned if you are looking at this thinking that's not the way we do it. You know, we customize these things for everyone so that they look exactly the way you want. And we've actually added some flexibility to allow you to choose between different label sizes. And at some point, you need to notify people in a juried show whether or not they have been accepted. And when I click on this button over here that says Process Notices, then I get this pop-up window. And this is modeled on the screen that we use throughout the system for sending correspondence from lists that are generated in various places. And we set this up so that you can actually send out different text depending on whether somebody was accepted or not. And that's why I've got these two templates already built into the system here, which you can modify and edit so it says anything you want. But there's one each for acceptance and a rejection. So I retrieve my template. You notice here that are the keys for data that will get substituted automatically when this is processed, either as a printed notice or as an email. And either of these two buttons here will do, you know, PDF actually means print. It will print out a hard copy for you. And we can set this up to print it out so it'll go on a postcard actually, and not just on a sheet of paper. Email will send an email. And if you're emailing, you can put the system into test mode. And for those of you who saw our webinar a couple of weeks ago, you noticed that this works the same way as sending correspondence from the research page based off of a research list. You can go ahead and send a test email to a designated email address. You can record either a note or the full text of the acceptance letter with the person's personal record. And when you are ready to send everything out, you click on Monitor, and this will actually send everything, all of the notices, send a copy of all the notices to your monitor addresses that are set up elsewhere in the system. And depending on what you're doing, if you're sending out the acceptances only, then you'll click this off. You may only have one form that you're sending out for either acceptances or rejections. And if that's the case, you'd simply select all, and you'd have appropriate text and data inserts to send that out. And as I said before, this sequence number here, let's see if this is going to regenerate for us. There it goes. It might take a minute. Okay, I refreshed it. Now you see that we've got sequential numbers. Now, starting at 1, I mean, that's the main point for this. But at some point, there might be gaps in the internal sequence numbers for items that had actually been removed or withdrawn. And then there's some other controls down here in the lower left. I won't dwell on it too much. This has mainly to do if you're trying to jury a show from images. At some point, you've got to get the images off the server. And after you've done your renumbering of the show, so that you've got a your proper sequence list, then you would click on this button to download files. And on the server where the original uploaded images were stored, it actually copies them over into a separate directory, and it renames them as it does it, prepending the name of the file as it was uploaded, which already was given a new name that identifies it with the artist and the entry number. It prepends it with the sequence number so that they will sort properly when you're presenting the images to your jurors. Now, we do have a remote juror application and screen set up. I'll see if we can't bring that up in just a moment. But if you're sitting in a room trying to have people make decisions and jury the show based on images, I think the most efficient way to do it is to download the images, put them on a CD, simply for performance reasons. It will take longer than most people probably want to wait to load each image over the web. That's just a simple fact. And based on how I've seen this done at one organization, they go through these images pretty quickly, and they go through it a number of times. So the quickest way to do it is to download the files, put them on a CD, perhaps into some kind of presentation software, although there's a lot of simple programs, inexpensive and simple programs that will simply, you just simply need to point them to the folder on the CD and say, give us a slideshow, and it will go ahead and pop everything up on a projector for you one at a time. And then you have your jurors vote on them as they come up. Now somewhere, and we tried to do this last time, and mainly because of my unfamiliarity with doing WebExes for large groups of people, I couldn't see them when they came in, but I'll try this time. There might be a little, if you haven't found it already, a little box in which you can type questions. So if you want to try that, I will see if I can find the darn thing on my screen, which you can't see. And I'm going going to pause for just a moment here, take a drink of water, and see if we can get into the web interface for this so you can see what that looks like. Bear with me just a second. All right, it's doing part of what I wanted to. Yeah.
Okay, you can. So you hit the microphone and make it unmuted, and we could talk to you.
Yes.
Instead of typing in chat.
Yeah, that might be, oops. That might be the easy way to do it. As long as everyone doesn't talk at once, but you're a pretty well-behaved bunch anyway, so. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Now, some of you will recognize the screen. I'm going to sign in. This will take me right to my account. And there should be a link here. This might have to do with the way we have this set up. There should be a nice button there. But this is where it will take you. First of all, while we're here, I want you to notice that here's my entry. There's actually a separate tab here for exhibition entry history. And you'll notice that I can actually come in and edit it here. Certain parts of it anyway. We don't let you edit everything. We don't. And this is something that you can decide on a case-by-case, you know, for each of you can make your own decision on how you want to do this. AWS didn't want people to change their mind about what image they had uploaded here, so they didn't allow them to upload a new image, but you could do that. And then this, we have this print detail. It's the same report that we looked at before. And since it's not going to cooperate, I'm going to have to force my way into this. But this is what the submission page will look like on the web. And then again, a lot of flexibility in what you're looking at for your organization. So just take this as a suggestion for what we can do. But it's pretty much all the same thing. You put in a title, a medium, a price, insurance value, dimensions, and again, we only have the two here, but easily could put the third one on there, and then upload your image from here, and then save and check out. And this is the button that when you click it, as I mentioned before, that when you do click it, you get an automatic confirmation that your entries have been saved in the system. And just to make it clear, when you're making an entry and you're clicking on internally, it's on that Add an Entry button, or if you're clicking Save and Check Out here, the entry is saved in the system right away, even if it's not paid for. And I showed you that before. Once the checkout is completed, the item will be returned to and marked paid, and you can always keep track of who's paid for an entry and who hasn't. But there's a deliberate reason for doing that, and it's probably just so I can sleep better at night. That's probably the biggest reason, but I can't imagine anything worse than having a bunch of people making entries and then having the checkout process fail for some reason and losing everything. So we take this in incremental steps just to make sure that we're saving as much as we can at points where it still makes sense, but it doesn't become overburdensome, and in ways that we can always go back and fix something that at least we have in the system. A lot easier to fix something that might have not come in right than it is to not know where it went or not see it at all. So that's why we do it that way. Now, I'm trying to find, I hope if you're typing me questions, I can't see them. Oh wait, what's this? Is there a chat window available for you? I think so. Let me just, I think I found that at least. Okay. If you can find your chat window. Or if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, go ahead and do that if you have a question. I think I've covered everything. If anyone can think of something that I've missed. Oh, I just thought of it. We got all this wonderful stuff in here, now somebody wants to buy something. How do you do that? That's actually a pretty simple question. Once something is entered, not only is an entry record made for the exhibition entry itself, but the item is also entered into inventory. So you'd simply go into your inventory sales part of the program and look up the piece. Now you hopefully would have a here we are. And it's going to show up here, and for some reason it's marked unavailable. I have to go to, oh, I know why. It's because it hasn't been marked accepted yet. When it goes into the system, it's in the inventory system, it's actually going to have, and we can just pop right over there and take a peek. It's going to go in with an inventory status of entry. And it isn't until it's been accepted that it's going to actually get marked as available. That's why it's not showing up. So let me just see if I can find it here. There it is. So marking as accepted would do the same thing automatically. I'm just doing it here so we can keep moving. I think it's still, there we go. So I need to find a purchaser. Let's see, who'd like to buy this? How about Mr. Smith? I have no idea who this person is, but they've just become a collector. And you've got all the same controls available here for making discounts, accepting partial payments and that sort of thing. It just checks out like a regular inventory item. And it will have treated this as a taxable item. It will also, when it set up the inventory item, copy over the default commission amount so that when you run your commission report on your inventory sales, it will give you detail on how much you owe the artist and concomitantly how much you get to keep. But that's all there is to it. That's all that's involved in in selling artwork out of an exhibition.
Hi, Tom. This is Deirdre from the Mainline Art Center.
Hi.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
This has happened to last show and then this current show that I did the entry for. When I pull up the artist name, the name of the exhibition that they're in doesn't come up under their name. So with, let's say, Jay Walker, usually it would show when I pull up his household, his membership information, then it would give me the options of the different shows that are active that I could then do the intake for. And it must be something that I'm not doing in the original setup, because it just doesn't show that latest show that I put up.
How many are there
under
open
the artist name?
How many have you got open at once?
Usually just, I'm sorry. It's usually just one show at a time. Yeah, and so it's actually showing that previous exhibitions are still active, but the most recent one that is truly active is not showing up there under the artist name. Now, it does show up when I go into the exhibition drawdown button.
Yeah, there might be a very simple answer for this, and I'd have to take a look particularly at it, but I think we only have made allowance here to show maybe 3 or 4 shows. So if you got a bunch on here, there are old shows that are still showing up here. Let me show you how to get rid of them, because I have a feeling
that'd be great.
I have a feeling what's happening just for space constraints and based on which might be a faulty assumption that you're only going to be running so many exhibitions at once, at least have so many open for taking entries at once.
So that would be great to learn how to actually take them off too, because it would make it more clear for people doing sales that are working the front desk and things.
Right.
What is
now,
active?
there's 2 shows on here. Here's the older one that was in here before. Let me show you how why this one is not showing up on the account page. It's because it's been marked closed. If I go back and mark that no, and then go back here, now we see both of them on here. And also, this is another thing we didn't see before. You see these red letters up here that says check artist status?
Right.
There's no link here, and I'm saying this mainly for other people's benefit because you probably already know this. There's no link here to enter the show because they have not been marked as an artist, and there is no consignor code. So
gotcha. They need a vendor number.
If you want to get the shows off of this list, and I'm pretty sure that the reason you're not seeing the latest one is because they're simply getting crowded out because of the limitations that we've put in the page. Simply go back in and mark it closed.
Got it.
But that only solves one problem. If this is a show that you had 2 years ago, why the heck is it even on this list? Let me show you what else you can do.
Great.
I'm going to close it, and I'm going to say, there's this other thing down here that says show on list.
Oh, okay, very good.
Now I'm going to save this.
Okay.
And look, it's gone.
Excellent.
But it's not deleted. You can get it back. Let me quickly show you how to do this so that nobody panics when they've inadvertently disappeared something. You go into the admin section. Of course, you have to have privileges to get in here. And here's a little menu item down here for archive events and activities maintenance. I'm going to click on that. And here is what we call a shuttle list. It shows over here on the left everything in the system, and you can do this with campaigns as well for fundraising. Everything that has actually been moved into an archive status is now on the left. Everything that's still open or active is over here on the right. So if I've taken my water show and I want to see it again because I want to run some reports on it, maybe, or I disappeared it accidentally. I just click on highlight it, click on the copy button. It moves it over here, and now when I go back into exhibitions, it's back on the list here.
Okay.
So closing the show takes it off of the account page so that it can't be entered anymore, and marking that show on list as no gets it off of even the exhibitions page, unless you restore it. Okay?
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. Now, let me just quickly see if I can sneak into something else here. Now, does anyone have an interest in seeing how remote jurying can be done?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And let me see if I can pull that up here. Oops.
We haven't done the online submissions thus far yet. I have a question about once the images are on the server, then we can download those, and then they're archived, and we have full access to those once we've downloaded them.
Yes.
Right. Okay. So that's something I think we definitely want to do in the future.
Well, one of the scenarios that I didn't discuss specifically that might be of interest to you, even if you're not going to jury the show from images, would be to invite your entrants to complete the registration process, everything short of actually bringing their work in to be juried online. And then when they show up, all the information is already in the system. There's a button on that Manage page where you can acknowledge that you have actually received the work. And
yes.
You can at the same time print out a receipt to give them, acknowledging that you received it. So
okay.
I think that might work for organizations that have a lot of volunteers too, volunteers that they don't necessarily trust with data entry in the system.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have people coming in pre-registered who could, go in the frequent flyer line, as it were, and just whiz in and out of there. They would have already paid. They would have already had all their information entered, and they'd be all set. They're just dropping stuff off. And you could really just have a volunteer without much data entry experience doing that.
Okay.
Now I'm trying to log into this other system. Hang on just a second. If I can just remember the guy's name. Here he is. All right. I need to go to another site. And hope I can spell this right. The American Watercolor Society that who uses our system for the first time tried remote jurying from the system. That's not the right. That's not the right one. Sorry, I've forgotten which URL I put this in. Let me see here. Hang on just a sec.
There, we can talk. You won't hear us. I turned the microphone off. So I should be done pretty soon, kiddo. It's, oh my God, already 2:15. Yeah. But I can't hear him. You will. When he starts talking. He's looking. Yep. Oh. So we're going to go get Beaky soon. How do you feel?
So hard. I can't figure out what to do.
Oh, we're getting stuck?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I have to get to kill this guy.
Uh-huh.
So, and I can't reach up to him.
If you know how to jump up high or something? Or?
Yeah, I'm trying because there's cheese.
Mm-hmm.
There's a walkway. I'm trying to get up on the walkway.
Gotcha. Do you know anybody who has with you?
No, sorry, that's not coming up. I'm wondering if we took it down. Let's see. Seems like it's going to come up, but no, I guess we'll have to make that the subject of a later webinar. Basically, we create a table for each remote juror to log in, a table of each entry for each juror, and then they would log into their own set of data. They would be able to scroll through all of the images and mark them as accepted or not. I'm sorry, that's not working. I'm not quite sure why. Yes, I do know why. Nope, I'm confused. I apologize for that. I was going to save that to the end because it's one of my favorite parts, and I'm frustrated. But we'll pick it up and try it again some other time. Does anyone have any other questions? Is there anything else that I have forgotten to touch on? I think I've hit everything that I can think of. Well,
I do have, oh, I'm sorry, I do have one more question. This is Deirdre again. So I entered an artist in the system, and I entered probably 10 pieces by this same artist, and then found out that he wanted to be known as a different name. So I went in and I just changed his name in Canvas under his membership into his tag name. So it was David Solon, it's his true name, and his artist name is Distort. So I went in and I changed his household membership, info to Distort. Then when I went back in to try and pull up his information, because I had made that original change, I no longer have access. So I actually had to re-enter him as David Solon and go ahead and re-enter the piece in order to sell a piece at an opening last Friday night. And I'm wondering, what do I do there? I guess because you said you archive information, I could probably recapture that, but I'm just wondering what I did wrong and what I could do in the future when that happens.
If all you did was change his name, I can't see any reason why that would cause any problems. So I'd have to look at it specifically to see specifically what it is you changed. But just changing the name on his record should have changed the name everywhere else.
Right, I know, that's what I thought. And then he's a young artist, so of course then he wanted to change his pricing after I had already entered it, and that's where I found that I wasn't able to get back into his account and then view his entries and change his pricing, because he no longer came up, nor his original name or his tag name. So I'll send you a screenshot of it.
Well, just send me who it is and let me look and see.
Okay.
Because that sounds odd. I can't
it does, right?
why
Okay.
that would happen.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
all right,
all
thank
there.
you.
It should be. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions from anyone? Okay, now I think I actually managed to record this one if my screen is not lying to me. So I will send out the link to the recording so that you all can watch it again. But I sure hope you have better things to do. But I know there are some of you who came in late and some of you had to leave early, so we'll try and get everything up. And that's it. If there aren't any other questions, then thank you very much for your attention. We're trying to do something like this on major features in the system every 10 days or so. So next week we're going to have a webinar on more general features, same as we did before. And then a couple of weeks or a week and a half after that, we'll be doing another detailed drill down type of webinar like this one on another feature, probably event ticketing and how that works and how we can now do multiple sessions or performances of the same individual ticketed event. So keep your eye out for announcements for that, and thanks again for your attention, and have a great day.
Thanks, Tom.